Morning, folks. Sunday morning. It's fairly dry. We're gonna mow the grass. I mean, it's early morning. I think it's dry, and there's supposed to be a chance of rain, like 30% at 9 a.m. I don't know. It's pretty dry. My experience is if there's no dew on the ground, sometimes that means you might get a rain, or the chance of rain might be higher. But it doesn't look like it. Anyway, we're gonna move some stuff around, and we're gonna get the mower out and mow the yard. And this will be the third mow, and it's been 3 weeks since we mowed last, so it's pretty tall. One weekend it was rainy, so we couldn't mow, and the other 2 weekends we were busy. So, and during the week I just don't have enough time after work to get to the mowing. So anyway, we're gonna move some stuff around, get the vehicles out of the way, and get the mower out, make sure the gearbox on the deck has fluid in it, otherwise it's all greased up and ready to go, and then we'll get on the mower and get going. Chat at y'all in a bit. Got everything moved around. Gonna go crank up the mower, fill it up with diesel. It should be pretty close to full. I think we filled it up before last mow. Got a couple things running just to get the batteries charged up. I'll let those run for 5 or 10 minutes, and the Ranger runs. See, the reason why I have to plug in the battery on the Ranger is the switch on the door that turns the lights off. It doesn't always turn the dome light off. Sometimes it'll come on just while, it'll just come on and then it drains the battery. So I got to disconnect the battery on that. I use that. That's my UTV. I use that on the farm. I like that truck because, for work, it's got a nice low bed rails. You can get in and out of the bed real easy. You don't have to climb in to get stuff out. You can reach, across the middle of the bed and pick stuff up. So anyway, we're gonna get this mower started and then get some diesel in it, and then we'll go check the gearbox oil and we'll get to mowing. Got the mower, checked the gearbox oil on the deck, and it was good and full. Well, not good and full, it's at the appropriate level. You take out the top bolt and it was of the casing and it's seeping out, so I've got plenty of oil, gear oil. I'm gonna go shut this off. Let's wait till I get over there and shut this tractor off. And then we checked the oil, and engine oil looked good. It doesn't use much, if any, engine oil. So let's see if this dome light will go off when we shut the door. See there? The dome light doesn't go off, so we're gonna unhook it right quick. Sometimes it goes off and sometimes it don't. I know what the switch, it's weird how they made the switch. They made the switch internal to the door, it's not external. And they say you can oil it, and I've done that. WD'd it. Didn't seem to make a difference. But other than that, she's cherry. I'll use these to load diesel cans up and get diesel for the mower and the tractor. So it's good for that purpose for sure. And then plus all the farm stuff works out really well. So we're gonna go over here and get on the mower and get this started. We'll be doing a different pattern. I usually go long ways to start with and then do it from each direction, and one's at an angle and one's kind of straight to the driveway. This time we'll be going back and forth along the front fence and making a different pattern so we don't have our wheels, you know, going over the top of the grass in the same spot every single time we mow. So anyway, we're gonna get this started, set this up on the mower, and let you guys watch, enjoy. This is the hour we were supposed to get rain. It does look like it could, but I don't think it's going to. Humidity's kind of dropped off actually. When it started, it was pretty humid. and there was a point there where it got pretty dark while I was mowing the front here, this first front section, and I really thought it was going to get to raining, but nah, it looks like it's going to pass through. I'm glad, even though it's supposed to just be 30%, and I think that even if it does, it'll dry off pretty quick. So, and maybe I'll just continue mowing while training. Anyway, we're going to get on to it, and I'm going to set this up. we got that first section of lawn done, actually more than half probably. Got the hardest part done because all mowing around all those buildings and all the stuff and everywhere, that takes a while, and all the trees, fruit trees we've got. I nicked one of them, felt bad, he nicked one of our peach trees. But we're fixing to move on to the front and the other side, and meaning we started on the front by my shop, and we're moving to the other side of the driveway and doing the front there. And we'll also go horizontal instead of back and forth the long way. Actually, I think they're about the same distance. I don't know why. I think it's shorter to go the other way. But anyway, we're gonna set that up and get that done. And that's the easy part, because there's not a whole lot to mow around up there. Once I get going around the house and get a few laps around the house, and passes where I got some distance between me and the house, and the rest of it usually goes pretty fast, and it's just the roadside, and then we're done. Probably weed eat. I may get the walk behind trimmer out and try to get it going. I haven't run that in 2 years, but I'd like to use it around this concrete pad and get that concrete pad, the edges done around it, and also where we feed the goats, so we can see if there's snakes. That's why I mow so much, folks. You may wonder, why do you mow so much? Well, I mow so much because rodents, snakes, and all that, they like tall grass, like it is now. And I mow a big distance around our house so we can see the snakes, see the rodents, and plus, they don't like to hang out in those areas out in the open. So I keep it mowed down for that reason only. So anyway, well, not that reason only. I think it looks nice too. And plus, you got kids or grandkids, it's a big place to run around. So anyway, we're gonna go on in and change the battery in this thing, and then we'll set it up. side of the front yard. Mowing good. The grass was tall, and you know, with the weedy areas with the seed heads, I've got medium lift blades. High lift blades might help, but those seed heads, you know, those long stringy seed heads, if you don't got good vacuum on your deck, it's not going to pull them up to get cut, and they'll just lay over. So you know, I had to go over those a couple times, get them down, and there's still some out there. Second time over this whole thing will make this thing improve the looks quite a bit, even though it looks a whole lot better now. But you know, it's a country yard, so we're not going over it again today. We'll see if we can get it mowed earlier in the growing before 3 weeks goes by. So in the springtime, you really need to mow every week. And when it rained on the second week, we couldn't mow, and I missed the other 2 weekends. You know, it just got too little tall on us. But the mower does good. This guy here, you know, I think the blades are ready to be sharpened, but you know, it goes right through this stuff. It doesn't hardly bog down at all, and doesn't leave a whole lot standing. You know, so I'm pretty happy with the mower. Yeah. So anyway, we only have the roadside left. There's a lot of seed heads up there. I'm thinking definitely on the slope I'm going to have to go over it a couple times, but we'll get that done. It usually only takes about 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. So we'll get that done, and we'll hook you up. Here you go. All right, got everything mowed. Time to clean up the mower, get the grass off the deck so it doesn't get wet and rotten and make the deck not bad, make the deck get bad. We don't want it to rust out. So I've had it for this many years, might as well take care of it and make it last the rest of my life. So anyway, gonna clean this up, and then I think we'll get the walk behind edger out. See if we can put some gas in and see if it starts. If it doesn't start, I'm not gonna worry with it, and I'll just get the weed eater out and do the job with that. And then we will, I don't know, maybe I'll take y'all along for that ride too. We'll see. Anyway, maybe not. We'll see. Anyway, here we go. All right, got the weed eater going. Gonna weed eat around the house. Probably hook y'all guys around my neck and see how that goes. Gonna see if I can adjust the weed eater a little bit. She's kind of sputtering, so may could use an adjustment. So anyway, we'll see if we can get her adjusted. I'm gonna hang y'all around. Here we go. Got the weed eating done. It actually started sprinkling on me, just really light. So I didn't want to put the weed eater up. What I really wanted that push behind whacker for was to do that feed area, because that grass getting kind of tall. I don't like walking out there when it's warm in the mornings when it's dark. I don't know if they're going to be sneaky snake in there or not. It's not my concerns are warranted. We've had 3 copperheads and a few chicken snakes. Chicken snakes are pretty harmless, but the copperheads, and those, unless they get a good strike on you, they got small mouths. So if you're wearing shorts, which I do in the mornings, I'm sure they could get on your leg if there was one laying in there. So anyway, that's the reason why we started weed eating that, because I wanted to get the weeds down in there so I could see. So anyway, I may still try to get that whacker out and clean up the concrete area. So let's go see about it. All right, we're gonna go in here and grab this walk behind whacker. Not sure what they're called, but it's kind of it's a Briggs and Stratton with the Alright, well there it is. I'm gonna put a little bit of fuel in it and see if it'll crank over at all. I mean, I'm sure it'll crank. We'll see if it'll try to start. If it tries to start, I may try to get it going. If not, if it don't run now, I ain't gonna push it because it looks like it might rain. So anyway, we'll check her out. Well, she runs. We'll see. I might give her a go. I'm going to take her over to the shop. I'm going to load her up and take her over to the shop and maybe spray it off a little bit. And I'm going to put some carb cleaner in the fuel. I didn't put a whole lot of fuel in there, so I'm going to put a bunch of carb cleaner in the fuel and see if it'll knock out, get that carburetor clean. If not, I'll have to do it myself manually. So anyway, if it don't work, I'll probably store her back and then make that a project for another day. But here we go. All right, got some carb cleaner, got some string for it right here, and seafoam. I think I might like Berryman's better, but this will do in a pinch. So let's put your guy over here. This is gonna be overkill. I'll put some in there so you can get her out. Top it off with gasoline. Then we'll put some string on it and see what happens. Well, that worked better than the push mower I have, or I don't have. Not bad. I'm happy with that. Don't know if the carburetor's getting any better or not. Seems like it could use a little more RPMs. Might have to adjust the throttle cable, see if it's got any more or if that's where it runs. But I'm gonna go ahead and try to go around this concrete slab and try to get that done. But it seems like it take more than 10-15 minutes. Be easier than lugging that weed eater. That weed eater, it takes a while to do that because this one's got a little bit more power than, it's 5 horsepower, so it's got a little more power than that weed eater. So I'm gonna put the trash cans up and all that, and then we're gonna put you back around my neck and we'll see if we can do that concrete pad. This one right here, you can see. Let's see, the concrete pad right over here. You can see the grass growing up along the edge. We're gonna try to get that done. Not bad. Hey, that was a lot less time than using the weed eater around the concrete pad. Now around this building here, I have to touch up with the weed eater because you can't get close to the wall with that thing. But any kind of overhang, you can definitely get to it. And the string, I was surprised it lasted. Didn't break off at all. I thought it would be dried out and break off on me, but it did pretty good. So pretty happy with that. So I'm gonna put that thing up. I'm gonna put it in a better spot than where the chickens are because the chicken dander, that there, it gets all over everything. We're gonna have to do something about those chickens. We're gonna find them a better spot than there. That's a little more convenient to help to work with them too. So anyway, I'm gonna put this thing up. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna take me a shower. And I think we're done with the yard for this weekend. All right, we'll talk at y'all later. All right.